Hi everyone, and welcome to another video on the Sega Game Gear. In this one we're going to be looking at the screen. This is still rocking the old screen, so it was reasonable for the time, I guess. As we said in the previous video where we recapped all of this, the screen was never sort of considered one of the best features of the game. It's kind of its best feature and also its worst feature. So yeah, we're looking to update this now. So just as a reference, this is what it looks like right now. So you can get an idea of what the actual screen looks like. Apologies for the flicker that's probably on the screen. This is a cold cathode tube, so the camera is unfortunately picking up on that. But yeah, so this is what it looks like at the moment. So we get an idea of the contrast. I mean, I can try and change the brightness. So I can get the contrast down so it's a little bit nicer. But yeah, it's still not fantastic. So the thing with this, the camera actually always does a better job of making it look better than what you actually see by eye. By eye, it's still quite washed out, even though the camera's actually reasonably good contrast. So we're going to be replacing this with a modern equivalent. So let me just get all the lights on and I will show you what we're going to change it with. Okay, so here we've got the kit that I'm going to be using to replace the screen in the Game Gear with the newest version. It's from Retro 6. I bought this and it's their, I think, no wire kit. They call it the Clean Screen GG in Game Gear. So the idea of this is you actually buy this in the parts that you need. So you buy the screen, the control board, the part that makes it no wire. So these are flex PCBs, so you can lay that on and just solder in place, and then a 3D printed bracket to hold the screen in the right location. So I actually printed this out myself. The model is available, so I printed that out myself because I've got a 3D printer, so why pay someone else to do something that I can do. So all I ended up buying from Retro 6 was the control board, obviously the LCD and the connection pieces. So there is an installation manual for this. I'll keep this at an angle so the light doesn't reflect too much off of it. So it's not an awful lot that you need to go through with this. Now the important thing with this is, I mean, whenever you're doing a big thing like this, I'll always say read the installation guide, read it again, read it several times just to make sure that you have got everything in mind that you need to do. So I have gone through this several times. So I'm going to need to get everything open, but once it's open, we need to remove the little stump at the front here because that will otherwise interfere with the screen. And then on the rear, if you have a look back on the original one when I was taking the audio board in and out, there's a metal cage on the rear of it, which we'll also need to trim some of the parts off with there. From there, we need to take the old screen off. That's probably the most awkward bit by the looks of it, so that could be interesting to do. We've got some components to remove, as well as the cold cathode tube as well. Unsurprisingly, we're not going to need that anymore. This has got its own built-in backlight. A couple of other bits and pieces about mounting it, and another cable. We need to remove or cut the high voltage line, so the 34-volt line from the power supply. And then the last bit, now this is where it gets important, the wire-free installation. There are two versions of the Game Gear. You've got the one that I've got, which is the single ASIC, or the one chip VA1 it's got up here. There's also the two chip VA0. Now you do need to make sure you've got the right one for your particular Game Gear, because if you get the wrong one, it ain't going to fit. There are some changes between the two, so you do need to make sure which board you've got, and therefore which kit you're going to need to buy, or which installation kit you're going to need. So yeah, make sure you get the right one. We've got the single chip here, so I've got the correct one for that, he says, very quickly checking to make 100% sure. Yes, that is the one. Good. So let's go back to the beginning. So we need to open up the Game Gear and remove that initial stump off of there. So let's get started with that. So here we've got the front of the Game Gear, and when we check the instructions here, the bit we need to remove is going to be this front nubbin there. So we're going to have to take that off somehow. I'm not entirely sure how yet. I'm thinking I might just get in there with possibly some wire cutters, maybe. If I can find some. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is always terrifying. There we go. Right, make sure that you do have your finger over that, because it will quite happily ping off. Actually, quite enthusiastic. That stung my finger a little bit. I have no idea where it went either. Yeah, well, sure I'll find it in a minute. Okay, so that's our first bit done. So our next bit is actually on the rear. So let's get out of the way and bring you in. So it's this metal piece here. So the first thing we need to do on this is actually unscrew it. So again, according to the installation manual, we need to trim off all of these bits at the back here. So all of these pieces here, which is correspondingly all of these bits along here. Again, I'm not entirely sure the best way of doing this. It's quite thin, so I'm hoping I can literally just get my scissors and cut it off that way. I would not recommend you use your best scissors for this, because it would almost certainly dull them, but these are not the sharpest to begin with, so let's give it a go. Right, so that's all of that done. Literally, you can just bin that now. Now I'm going to assume, because it doesn't say anything else in the instructions, that I can pop this back in again. So just to save a bit of time in a minute. Right, so that's all of that back together again, and I think that is all we need to worry about at that point. So next up, whoops, too far. So we need to remove the old screen. So let's get the circuit board over. And while I'm planning to remove the screen, I still don't really want to scratch it if I can help it. So I'm going to get myself a sheet here, a little bit of fabric just to go on there. Right, so it says remove the tape covering. Oh, let's rephrase that. Remove the tape covering the original screen connector on the motherboard, then flip over the board using soldering irons at around 350. Okay, so we want to remove, it's this black bit here that we need to remove. So I'm hoping this will just come up. Right, so with that removed, we now need to remove the fuses either side, the cold cathode tube, which is those 2 points there. Let's turn my desoldering iron on. Sorry for the noise that's going to produce. So yeah, we've got the 2 points there, that point, those 2 points, and those 2 points. And then on the other side, right by where the transformer is, we've got the 2 resistors that are there. We've also got to remove this coil here. And I think that's it. So with all of those removed, the last 2 bits are the 2 surface mount resistors here. Now they should actually be quite easy to do. So if we just make sure that you're on, and what we'll do is we'll just apply lots of heat to it, and they should spread the heat across and then just lift up as the heat penetrates them. So there we go, there's one. And then there we go. Yep. So that's basically everything we need to remove for this, if I'm reading our instructions right. Oh, we got to do the 35 volt wire, which is just a question of snipping this one right at the edge here. So there we go, that's that done. What I will do is, before I put all this back together, I'll put a little bit of tape around that just to insulate it. So although it's pretty well enclosed, obviously there is still some wire in there, so we don't want us touching things on the inside. And then shoving 34 volts into somewhere that should only have 5. So the next step is to get the screen in. So looking at this and looking at the instructions, we've got screen's actually going to go that way because the cable has to go around. This is the reason why we need to remove that nubbin from the other side, because it will impact on the back here. At least I think that's the reason why. So with that there, we then need this one will go in here. I'm leaving the screen protector on for the time being, just so that I've got something to shield it from my fingerprints. Then we need to, oh, this is going to be fiddly, so we've got to turn it over. Okay, so that's everything in place. Connect the LCD ribbon. So I'm not sure. So underneath here we've got this little connector. So if I lift that up, that's good. It's an easy one. Pop that in. Zoom in for you. So yeah, we've got that sits in there. I think, and then close that down. Nope. Okay, so we've got that in. Basically, let me just focus back down again. Yeah, you've got to get the actual the backing piece underneath, so it's got to actually slide down and in, and then you can close it down. So slightly awkward, but not impossible. So that's that done, and that's why I left that screen protector on the front. Okay, so that's that done, and then I think the last bit is just to install these pieces. So the idea is that you can pop these onto here, you line them up with what you need to connect to, and then just solder away. Right, okay. Sorry for not doing much of a voiceover with that one. It's mostly down to the fact that it's been really difficult to see what was going on. This is not a kit that is particularly easy. I've just realised I've got a bridge. Let me just solve that one quickly. Okay, yeah, this is definitely not, even though there's no wiring to actually do, I mean there is wiring in as much as you've got the flex boards, but there's no direct wiring. So it makes the job a bit easier, but overall it's still not a particularly quick and easy job to do. So let's see if I can get the power and everything back on there and see how we can go with that. Whee! Ah, I was really worried for a second there because I wasn't sure if that was going to work. But there we go. So we have, and brightness was all the way down, which is why it wasn't initially working. Well, initially it was, well, I think, let me just turn that down. Initially I think it wasn't working because I messed up on the other side and I didn't realise I'd missed a joint. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, okay, fine. So we know it's working. So let's power this off and we'll get the whole thing put back together again. And here we have the final product. The screen is a marked improvement over the original, although with some caveats. Firstly, it is much brighter, the contrast is better, and the screen has far less blur. Here's a quick comparison. On the left is the original screen and the new one on the right. You can see the new screen is much clearer, and unlike previously, I can see the screen at the same time as the camera. It's got 4 screen modes, one more than the instructions say, plus a scanline version of each one. And I mean, this is where some of the caveats come in. The resolution of the new screen is not a direct scaling of the Game Gear's native resolution. That leads to artifacts when scrolling, and you can see on the checkerboard pattern where it seems to be sort of wobbling. So the screen modes are scale to screen, horizontal integer scale, double pixel scale, and original resolution. The scale to screen helps keep the whole resolution viewable, but it does introduce the aforementioned artifacts. The interesting one is the horizontal integer scale, where it doubles the screen horizontally, reducing the scrolling artifacts when moving left and right, but not vertically. So if you do a lot of horizontal scrolling games, it could be a nicer one to actually go for. Double pixel scale does exactly what it suggests. It doubles all of the pixels and eliminates the distortion, but you do lose some of the top and the bottom of the image. Finally, the original resolution will show the pixel perfect original image in the middle of the screen. Personally, I feel that this is the least useful, certainly for me, as it produces an image. It's just too small. It's right in the middle and it's very difficult for me to see with my aging eyes. But it does give you the original resolution, so there's no distortion at all. As I've already said, each of the modes also have a scanline alternative as well. So would I recommend this to everyone? As a kit, only if you're reasonably confident with fine pitch soldering and you can live with the scaling options. On that last point, I didn't notice the artifacts while playing, but they are there. If you feel capable to install it or have someone install it for you, it is a worthy upgrade. It can also help improve battery life. I measured the original screen at 230 milliamps while playing Sonic. That's the whole system. With the new screen, it reduced it down to 110 milliamps, so potentially doubling battery life. One final thing I haven't covered, the control board has an RGB output that can be connected to an external screen. I haven't used it here, but let me know in the comments if you'd like to see what that looks like. I may get another shell, as it would mean modifying the case to have a connector. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.